Welcome. What is this thing called connection? And whoops, hang on. A whole thing gone pear-shaped here. Just a second. Sorry, everyone. All right. We start again. Oh, no panic over here. All right, so another welcome. Let's talk about what this thing called connection is all about and what makes it so important in all of our relationships. We are wired for connection. Recently, we welcomed into the family my 10th grandchild, Maximilian John Elliot. Pretty regal name, hey? As he has grown and is now 10 weeks old, he's showing all the signs for being connected. And if you look at him and smile, he'll smile right back at you. You know, that beautiful, I have a real problem. Sorry, guys. Everyone connected to my distress at the moment and my total meltdown. And I feel like I'm supposed to be good and I don't know what I'm doing. So this little boy smiles back at me, and when I look at him and he smiles, you know, I just warm up, just the way babies have us do. And the whole world lights up around him as we go, wow, isn't that just something? There is a process for connection. What does it take for you to be present and willing to listen to what I have to say? Obviously, the topic, what do you want to take away with you today? Over the years, running hundreds of our workshops, I've learned the power of connection and what it brings to a conversation and to meetings. Now, that has not always been true. As a young woman out to prove herself, I would often make a royal mess of this process. I was totally driven by results, and there was no warm-up, which I'll tell you more about in a minute, with my team. All the conversations were about the results that I wanted, without any regard or discussion as to what they were dealing with. Great way to have people feel appreciated, right? How many of you can relate to a version of this? Go ahead, nod your head. Let's make sure we're in good company, hey? When I learned there was a process to connection and how it worked, my capacity to be related to people changed. I've got more out of them and they got more out of me, and we created the results we wanted together. In a time where we have a myriad of ways to communicate with one another, email, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, just to name a few, the feeling of isolation and disconnection is greater than ever before. 2 weeks ago, Jay and I attended the Family Business Australia conference up on the Gold Coast. What a buzz! To reconnect with people I've not seen in 2 years, to talk about how things are really going, and share where to from here. Just prior to that, we ran our first face-to-face workshop with a current client. We had not been face-to-face for 9 months as COVID lockdowns had forced us to run the program online. Likewise, their team had not been together physically for that length of time either. It was heartwarming to watch as they excitedly shared and reconnected with each other. In addition, we ran our first staff retreat in 18 months. It was so much fun, where as a team, we reviewed our values. Once values are installed into everyday conversations in a business, it is time to review them and create new ones if necessary. We created 2 new values. fun with a distinction of our kind of crazy, and connection with the distinction of lightens the load. These two new values remind me of how much more we can achieve together and how we can either lighten each other's load or burden each other. When you bring in fun with a little bit of crazy, you can have some of those tough conversations. If you want to know more about values and why a value requires a distinction, then listen to our webinar recording on our website titled Values-Based Leadership. In the words of Aristotle, man is by nature a social animal. Isolation has had a big impact on people. If you had asked me all those years ago, I would not have understood. Today, I get the impact. Not being connected with other humans is not healthy, physically, emotionally, or mentally. How we rebuild connection with our people will make all the difference right now. As leaders, it's an absolute necessity for us to step up and be available. I recall one of my team saying this to me about a previous team member. They do not come across as available. Are you available? Or do you use the cliched comment, I have an open door policy, and think that's enough of an invitation? A more effective method would be you go to them, tap the floorboards of the office and the factory floor, chat casually with people, get into their world. In other words, check in with people, be interested. Being clear on who we are as social creatures would improve our lives, our society, and our businesses. As we continue to navigate working across multiple mediums, how do you maintain connection? And what is the fallout of not being with people? To you personally, to your people, and to the business. COVID forced us into isolation, and we were underprepared on how to maintain connection. How could we, when we were really poor at it when we were together? My intention today is to leave you with the tools to monitor yourself and your people, and notice when they are not present, which reduces the effectiveness of your meetings and overall results. If you want people to leave meetings feeling like they were valuable and worth their time, use the lens of the 7 steps to connections as a guide. We are going to spend a lot of time today teaching you how it works. In our first breakout room, let's get connected. Introduce yourself and share a bit about yourself, where you're from, what you do, and why you are here. Then talk about what are the signs that you've noticed that a meeting or conversation has gone off track. Off you go. Welcome back. So now you're more acquainted with the people in your group. Did you notice a few things? When someone spoke about why they were here today, did you decide that you wanted some of that too? That causes connection to each other. Or when they articulated the signs they saw when a meeting was off track, you related to it and said to yourself, yes, I've seen that too. When we are open and share experiences with people, it connects us to ourselves and each other. To give you a flavour of what it takes to connect, this quote from Almost Famous says it all. The only true currency in this bankrupt world is what we say to someone else when we're being uncool. It is in that moment we are seen and we see them. Have you noticed when you are willing to let people really see who you are without the facade, they lean in and connect? Given we are about to talk about the process of connection, what does it take to get people truly connected? To continue the line in Almost Famous, he goes on to say, be unmercifully honest. As a leader, building your capacity to be unmercifully honest is the first step to connection and trust. I have worked with a CEO called Justin in different companies throughout his career, and he has mastered the unmerciful truth sayer. To achieve this, you must genuinely care deeply for your people while being very clear on the results you want. We have a lot of information on this topic, and we don't have the time to cover it all today. So we will focus purely on what it takes to connect in your everyday conversations and meetings at work. There are 7 steps that maintain and cause connection. They are: connect people to the present, connect people to you and themselves, connect people to each other, connect people to the work. Only then can you do the work. From there, you complete, then you separate. In this talk, we'll spend most of our time unpacking the first 4 steps. If these are missed, meetings or conversations go pear-shaped very quickly. If a meeting goes off track, it happens in those first 4 steps called the warm-up. The success of our conversations and meetings happen in that warm-up. In other words, it's all about the warm-up. Do I sound like I'm repeating myself? I am. I can't stress it enough. We dance in the warm-up and we stay there until people are ready to do the work. Next slide, please. Let's unpack what the warm-up is. What does it take to dance in the warm-up? It's like being at the dance. First we cha-cha, then we rumba, then we rock and roll. Before you even start a meeting or conversation, get yourself present. Use your intention for the meeting to do this. Are you clear what you are about to discuss? Get your irritations and concerns out of the way. If you don't, they will be in the background, just waiting for an opportunity to hijack the whole process. You've seen that, haven't you? Now you're ready. For the purpose of this presentation, we will talk from the position of internal staff meetings. However, the same can be applied to external meetings. Remember, this process is not linear. Stay alert. Notice when people are leaning in or out. Some people literally move their chairs away from the table. To begin, connect the people to the present and to you. That means get them thinking about where they are right now. If you want people to listen, bring them into the here and now and give your people a chance to let go of what they were doing before the meeting started, or you will deal with their irritations and lack of attention. Believe me, the point of power is in the present. You can simply say to people, I know we're all under the pump. This meeting is important, and can we work together for the next half an hour to solve this issue? Otherwise, your meetings become pointless with a lot of talk and no action points and little happening outside of the meeting. How many of you have experienced this in your business? Yeah? Nod your heads. Notice you're in good company. This allows you to segue to the next part of connecting people to themselves and each other. By the way, you can do this in the first part by asking rhetorical questions that have people examine their own thoughts, then asking them to indicate if they've had a similar experience. In that moment, You connect people to themselves and each other. Have you noticed that I've already done this? There are countless reasons why you do this. Namely, sharing reduces isolation and increases a sense of belonging. Shy people need safety to participate. If they can see themselves in someone else, they will be more willing to join in. It gets everyone on the same page. Now you have an increase in relatedness and intimacy is present. The word intimacy is actually made up of 3 words. Into, me, see. The process of connection is all about breaking through the barriers that we put up, and intimacy is required to have us drop those barriers. In that moment, we are vulnerable, and there is an open invitation to our people to do likewise. One of the biggest pieces of coaching that we give most senior leaders is to drop the facade that they know everything. They learn 3 words, I don't know, followed by, what do you think? All of this means that you get the great thinking from everyone in the room because they feel connected and empowered. This alleviates those throwaway comments at the end of a project, like, I could have told you that. Don't you want to murder people who say that? You didn't connect the people and they didn't feel safe enough or included to share their misgivings. Recently, working with a client where there was not enough capacity for the team to interject, interrupt, and put forward their concerns and be heard, resulted in hundreds of thousands of dollars in extra cost at the end of a project. So once again, how many of you have seen this? Nod your heads. Notice, everyone, you're in very good company. Now, you can connect people to the work, simply giving them what you are there to do and accomplish. Make sure they understand the expectations of the meeting and how they can contribute. Staying in these first 4 steps ensures the success of your meetings. When we lose the warm-up, the task drives the conversations. The next thing on our to-do list runs the show. Or what I've noticed is there's no warm-up and groups go straight to the work and wonder why the results they want are not achieved. Meetings become the grind that they must endure while the tasks on their desks mount up. Can you think of that? Even now you're thinking, oh, there's something better I could do than this. I bet there are a lot of you who can relate to this one. When you become acutely present to the people and what is happening around you, you will notice when people have cooled down rather than warmed up. In that moment, go back to the warm-up. Check in with the individual that you see has gone silent or is leaning out. Say something straight away. Don't ignore it or let it slide. As soon as you notice that anyone has disengaged, circle back to the point in the warm-up that will work. If they are not present, you could ask, what are you thinking? We will walk you through the last 3 steps after the next breakout question. To keep you in the warm-up, in your next breakout room, share your war stories about the meetings gone wrong and how frustrating it was. So our question or our discussion, share with each other some of the war stories, and knowing what you know now, what would you do different? Off you go. Welcome back. I'm a great believer that in hearing other people's stories, especially their war stories, we learn what to do and what not to do. As an aside, no matter where you are in the process of connection, we are constantly circling back to the warm-up. Staying alert as the leader of a meeting is paramount. A few weeks ago, Faye and I ran our values workshop with a client. Our intention for this client's workshop was, We are empowered by the values and distinctions we create and leave with the confidence to use them as a tool to drive accountability. Big ask for a 5-hour workshop. 3 hours into the workshop, we had not created one value or distinction. The work we had done at this point was to connect the team to each other, clean up some of the complaints and concerns with the team, and get them present to work on where we blah, blah, blah. I'm having a fine day, and getting them present to the work that we were there to do. Until the team had cleaned up with each other, we could not begin the work of creating values. The problem is people ride over the top of upsets and concerns and then wonder why their meetings and conversations are ineffective. Getting people clear and present ensures that the work gets done, and fast. It only took 2 hours for them to come up with 3 amazing values and accompanying distinctions. Not surprisingly, one of their values was wholehearted. Their distinction, passionately committed. It took passionate commitment to each other and the business for them to stay in the warm-up. Then the work was easy. In other words, the work is done in the warm-up. At the conclusion of the session, one of the team said, "I've just learned the work is done in the warm-up, and it was easy to accomplish what we were here to do when we were deeply connected to it and each other." If we want to unpack warm-up, think about what I've done so far. Consider that I've not told you anything yet other than preparing you for the conversation and given a whole lot of anecdotal stories about it. The longer you stay here when you run your meetings, the more effective they will be. The problem is people want to go straight to the task, or what we call the work, not stay in that warm-up. This is not talking about the footy on the weekend. When you are clear about what your intention for the meeting is, then keep their attention on it. So in other words, use your intention to keep their attention. Notice who is leaning in and who is not. Notice the person who has not contributed and work out how you are going to get something out of them. Believe me, it is the person who is silent in the corner who will derail your whole project. I've often said this to that person. Now, don't be stingy. What's in your head? Keep referring to your intention. You can say things like, what about this intention are you connected to? What word are you noticing more than another? Mastering warm-up is the key. The deeper the warm-up, the easier and faster the work gets done, just like our values workshop. By the way, it can take 1 sentence to do these 4 steps, or 3 hours. It depends on what the meeting is about. Our sales calls at Integrity and Values take 30 minutes or less. We go into the meeting with 1 small intention. What do we want to get out of the conversation? We find out very quickly what our prospect wants to get out of the conversation. We get that done by dancing in the warm-up. Then we make sure and we are clear about the next step. That is, when they leave, what's going to happen. If we said 30 minutes, unless they want more time, we make sure that's the time we take. Fail mastering the warm-up and you will live with some of these scary statistics. Now, these are pretty scary. How about this? Upper management spends 50% of their time in meetings. How many of you have started to calculate this? Go calculate it for yourself. Which they say 60% of the time, the meetings are a waste of time. 1/3 of their working hours are wasted. That is almost 2 days of their time each week in meetings that are useless. In your next meeting, look at the people around the table and estimate the hourly salary of everyone sitting there. That's how much this little get-together is costing your business. So, don't conduct meetings just for the sake of them. Here's some more scary statistics on meetings if you don't believe me. In the past 2 years, one-on-one meetings have increased by 80%. When people are not in the same place, then they use meetings to say simple things that if they were in the same office, they would have been passed to each other in a moment. These statistics are from the National Bureau of Economic Research. 35% of employees complain that they waste 2 to 5 hours per day on meetings and calls with nothing to show for it. 70% of all meetings keep employees from working and completing their tasks. And here's what happens in a meeting when they're no good. 92% of employees multitask in meetings. That means they're not paying attention. Elon Musk recently urged Tesla employees to forego excessive meetings in a company-wide email, calling them the blight on large companies. He said, "It is not rude to leave. It is rude to make someone stay and waste their time." I love this. Don't make people stay when they are getting anxious about what is mounting on their desks. So when you return to work today, look around. Make sure those people in the meeting are able to make a contribution. Check in if this is just making them anxious because they have something really urgent to deal with. Let people who can't add value leave. Make sure their leaving is not just them being belligerent. It's our job as leaders to set the stage for the meeting. Ensure your intention is clear and they are clear on how they can contribute. Moving to our next discussion, to start, share in your group what you've learned so far, or if you're a client, share how you've used the process of connection in your meetings. Our next question for discussion: how could you address some of these scary statistics in your meetings? Off you go. Welcome back. In a Microsoft article just published, the one thing they have said they lost in the whole working from home and virtual teams is connection, leading to a lack of creativity and innovation and teamwork. Much harder to do online. You can't get excited. You can't get that excited and babble over each other and bounce off each other online. There is a huge delay on Zoom. Remember our team's retreat? Not being together for 18 months did have an impact on our team. The last 3 steps of the process of connection are do the work. Complete, separate. Remember what we said earlier is if you don't pay attention to the warm-up, then what you'll do is go straight to this. It can feel jarring to people. Your to-do list is king, and woe betide anyone who gets in the way. Most times in our meetings at work, we are driven by that task. As we learn to change this, just notice people getting fidgety and edgy because they're driven by the task. In their heads, they're asking, why aren't we just getting on with this? In fact, one leader said recently, you always do this. Can we just get on with it? This is called cutting across the warm-up. In fact, what he also said is, time is money, you know, which is his big thing. Now, what do you do when people derail your warm-up? Just ignore it or deal with it. I guarantee If you do not say something, it will come back to bite you later. All I said was, really? What do you think you've just done to the warm-up? And how safe is it for anyone to challenge you right now? I guarantee they won't. So I will. People don't know how to challenge if they don't understand warm-up. They just know it doesn't feel right, so they lean out and start multitasking on their computers or in their heads. How long you stay in the warm-up all depends on the reason for the meeting. So pay attention to your intention for getting together. Remember, communication is 20% slower on Zoom than face-to-face. There is a productivity loss right there. Spontaneity is lost on Zoom, and movement is limited in this setting. So people go straight to the task, and you lose connection through eye contact, and you can't read the nuances. Creativity is stifled. Energy on Zoom is less or non-existent. Introverts become more introverted, and extroverts who require social interaction become frustrated and dominate. Businesses are saving money on office space. However, their loss in productivity and innovation is much more significant. How do you connect people to the work? By using your intention. Introduce the items you want to talk about. Describe what you and your people are here to do. And cover what outcomes you want. Be specific. At this point, you check in again. It's extremely important to ensure they are still engaged and are ready to work. If things are going pear-shaped, go back to the warm-up. Finishing well is equally as important as starting well. Completing a meeting well with clear outcomes and expectations will deliver desired results. Summarize your key points, ask for actions to be taken, and get clear agreements. Agree on the next meeting date and actions. If people are coming in and out of the meeting, make sure you acknowledge them and get them in and up to speed fast. Use your intention here, or if they're leaving, simply ask, what are you leaving with? If you don't do this, you'll lose the warm-up. And there we go again. We begin all over. This topic is one of our wheelhouse conversations here at Integrity and Values. And I've struggled to get clear on what will make a difference for you today. I get carried away with all I'm supposed to say. And then I start talking faster and faster and faster so that I can cram it all in and give it all to you. When it takes us many workshops to get leaders to get this. Let me leave with one thing. Keep checking in with how connected you are to what you've called the meeting for. And if you've been invited, bring your whole self to the meeting, not just your body with your mind somewhere else. And connect, connect, connect to the people, to the topic, to the work, to the present. The word connect comes from the Italian word for with. So be with the present, with yourself, with them, and with the topic or the reason for the meeting. When we learn to connect, we experience small moments with people that become big memories. With those we love, with those we work with, and even strangers we meet. Years ago, as I walked towards a bus station outside the Queen Victoria building in Sydney, I was tired and had had a long day of meetings. I noticed no one was sitting on the bench. I sat down. Then I heard a woman say, "Don't sit there." I looked up at her and she was pointing to a dirty homeless man at the other end of the bench. I looked at him and she said, "Don't look at him." I kept looking at him and smiled. He reached out his hand and I took it. In the background, she said, "Don't touch him." And he said something I have never forgotten as he held my hand in a gentle grip. They can't look at me because I am them. When we connect with our people, we find ourselves in them, and in that moment, we lighten each other's load. Thank you for being here today.